How's it going, everyone? And thanks for tuning into this episode of the Hanging Up the Boots podcast. In this episode, I interview my good friend Cooper Westerman. He's Iowa born and bred, and he was on our detachment for the deployment. A lot like Brandon, he had a pretty winding and roundabout way through Radio Battalion. He did a little bit of everything, but he's a really interesting dude, great musician, pierced up face, dyed hair. He's an interesting guy, and I'm really glad I got to talk to him. This episode is a little bit heavier. It's kind of like the one with Micah, so just be ready for that mentally. But please give it up for Cooper Westerman. All right. So, Coop, it's fucking good to see you, man.
Well, I can't see you, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's good to
Yeah,
hear
no,
from
I
you,
got
dude.
you. Yeah, we haven't talked for a minute
Yeah,
texting, but like
yeah. I don't think
I
I've seen
miss
you
you.
since your wedding, dude.
Oh, I forgot about that.
You forgot about your wedding.
Uh I hope Morgan doesn't want. I'm kidding. I totally remember it.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, that was the last time.
Yeah, but it's good to see you, man. So, for those of you who, I'm sticking to the detachment boys, or I have so far. So, Cooper was in Radio Battalion with me, and he went overseas with us. He was on one of the other teams, but he's always been one of my closest friends from the military days. So, Coop, just get us started. Talking about how you got into. I always start with how you get into or got in to the military. Like, what got you into the recruiter's office and on the yellow footprints?
So I mean, I had my whole family kind of served, grandfather's dad and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always something that was in the back of my head as even a young kid. Um, but as I grew up, I got more focused on like music and art and stuff. I kind of fell out of sports in high school. Um, but my story of how I got in is really moto, like super moto, because
Nice.
I made the decision that I was like, yeah, I'm going in the military when I remember I was sitting in my sister's room and I was a sophomore in high school, and the year was about to be over, and we're just chilling down there, and my dad came down and he's like, oh my god, we just killed Osama bin Laden. And I'm like, what? And then you get all this news, and
Ladies and
SEAL
gentlemen, we
Team
got him.
6, yeah,
Yeah.
SEAL Team 6 was in there, and we watched Obama's press conference, and
Mm-hmm.
um, heard the whole story. And being a high schooler, I'm like, yo, that's sick. SEALs, let's do it. I want to be a Navy SEAL. The only problem is I was really fat, and that's not how they
That's
roll. So
that's right.
yeah,
I always forget that about you.
I used to be a chunky kid.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, so I was like, when I made that decision, and I was like, the military's it. And so I started talking to recruiters the next year. I was too young to like for them to actually do anything with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned 17, and they were all over it. I went to the Navy first, and I remember he was a bigger guy, and he said I was too fat, which hurt coming from the Navy. That's when I was just like, dude, you're out of control.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Well, you
talked to
wanted
the
that
Air
juicy
Force.
SEAL contract, right?
Yeah, they kind of laughed at me about that whole thing, and they're like, there's no way you can do it. I mean, it hurt, and I was like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I talked to the Air Force, and none of them really felt right. Excuse me. And I remember I was sitting in my dad's office, his office at the school, and he's like, well, have you even talked to the Marines yet? And I was like, no, I haven't. So I called them up, and over the phone, it was Gunny. I think it was like Gunny Hunter or something like that. He was the lead recruiter there, and he asked me basic questions like, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? And as soon as I gave him those numbers, he's like, oof.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, dude, they don't want to fuck with me, you know. Like these
Mm-hmm.
are Marines. Like every single Marine is like a hard charging son of a bitch, like ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember his response is what sold me on the Marine Corps because he was like, I want you to be here on Thursday and you're gonna work out with us. He's like, you're fat right now and you need to accept that, but we're gonna change that. And I was like, yo, they didn't just like write me off. They were like, we're gonna make you a Marine. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that's dope.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it. I started going to, I remember my first warrior night, they were doing pull ups and I jump up on the bar and I couldn't do a single pull up. And it was embarrassing. It was
Yeah.
embarrassing that like
Mm-hmm.
the kids that were doing one or two pull ups just like I felt like a pleb.
Yeah.
And I just worked really hard. And from like that day, I was just like, I don't want to be embarrassed anymore. So I like started running, I started eating right. And in like 3 months, I dropped 90 pounds. I was at 260 and I got down to 170. And like the recruiters were like eating it up. And they're like, you're going to be a fucking honor grad. Um, I wasn't that at all. And we'll get into what kind of Marine I was.
Well, I mean
But
that's a good start though, and that is
yeah.
important for people to hear that not everybody that ends up in a recruiting office you know is Dakota Meyer, or not everybody you don't start there. They make you what they want you to be.
Oh, absolutely. That's the best part about the Marine Corps is
Yeah.
like from even day one as a poolee, like you're being institutionalized by them.
Yeah, which
Um,
has its pros and its cons.
y- exactly. Um, but yeah, from there, my recruiter was Sergeant Christopher Fortune Holland, who is
It's a hell of a name.
yeah, he's now my brother-in-law. So that's a
Right.
that's a fun story. Um, I got drunk on New Year's Eve and gave him my it's great. He's a great guy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
super happy to have him in the family and like he's been there like through everything and like all the shit that I've been through like he's
Mm-hmm.
he's really like been there for me. So that's awesome. But yeah, I I think when did I went to MEPS in like June of 2012 and I
Mm-hmm.
officially like swore in and became part of the DEP.
Mm-hmm.
And then and our school was funky because we switched from the like regular semesters to trimesters. So I had enough credits and I graduated that November. And I remember like I wasn't supposed to ship until like that next summer,
Mm-hmm.
but I got a call in January and um, Chris was like, "Are you like ready to roll in a week?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I just remember like I didn't even say anything, and as soon as I hung up the phone, my mom started crying, and she knew. She's like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
he's going."
it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, how were
and
your
I
parents about that whole? I mean, coming from a military family, I'm sure they were a little bit more understanding than people who are just like, "Hey, mom and dad, I'm gonna go, kick doors in the sandbox."
yeah, my dad was really proud. Like he's not the type of guy to like, slap me on the back every day and be like, I'm really proud of you. I love you, you know.
Yeah.
But you could see like he was excited. He came to all the recruiters visits with me. He talked to them all with me, and he was like, you could tell he was really proud that like I was taking that step because he had served and it was kind of like his legacy living on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. My mom took it a little bit harder because I remember when I was in the recruiting office of the Marine Corps, they, were going over the jobs and stuff. And I was dead set on infantry. Like I was dead. I wanted to be, in the sandbox kicking doors.
Yeah.
And um, I scored like my ASVAB score for Intel was not as high as like people like scoring 99s. I had like an 82 and my recruiter was like, no, you're not going to be infantry. Like that's reserved for people that score like 31. And I'm like, no, dude, I want to
Yeah.
kick doors.
Sorry to all the
Um,
grunts that are listening. We don't think you're dummies.
no,
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
we really don't.
We all talk
Yeah.
shit though.
Yeah.
But no, he's like, what are you going to do when you get out of the Marine Corps? That was like the biggest thing that everyone kept telling me is, what are you going to do when you get out if you were just a grunt? And I was like, I mean, there's plenty. Anyway, I digress. Sorry. So that's he kind of pushed me towards Intel, and that's when I started thinking about it more. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone from that fat kid to the was like super in shape. Like I would run to school every day. Like it was 4 miles one way, and I would like run to school. We'd work out in the morning. I'd have track practice after school, and then I'd run home. And
Jesus. And weren't you
yeah,
eating
I was.
like something like an entire bunch of bananas a day or something like that?
Oh, dude, quick stuff. There's a place out here. It's like a convenience store called Quick Star, and they used to have these like bananas as they like were about to go bad. You could get them like a whole bundle for $1, and I used to go in there and get like 3 or 4 bundles, and I just eat them all day. Like every
Yeah,
class, I was eating bananas. Like yeah, it was yeah.
that's mental. But
I
I
was
mean, it
I was
worked.
mental, and I was like super motivated to go, and I was like I was ready. So um, where were we? I'm sorry.
You got no, you're good. You got the call.
Yeah,
You're in shape. You're getting ready to go. You went to MEPS and everything. You're good. You're ready.
yeah, and so and like I was from Iowa, so like I see a lot of um poolies and stuff that get to interact with like drill instructors will come out for like those big events and stuff. So you, I don't know if you ever had that, but
We had a couple pool functions, and they were kind of fun, but it was kind of like you could kind of tell it was like a PR thing.
yeah.
It was like we had one where we all went to this school's like soccer field or something. We basically had a couple drill instructors that came through and just like play hazed everybody. We were like, "Oh my god, there's somebody yelling at me!" Ah, but that was pretty much it. I mean, it wasn't, hey, here's a little taste of what you're gonna get. It was it was kind of a dog and pony show, but you know, it the Marine Corps does have, I think, the most effective like marketing and recruiting campaign of any other branch,
Oh yeah.
just
I
by
mean
doing stuff like that.
they sell that like image of like, and you know it, like the dress blues, they play that shit
Oh
up.
yeah, big time.
You know, look how sexy we, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like never saw. I remember I got off the plane in San Diego, and there was a drill instructor there that like just nabbed me up right away and threw me in a line. And I remember when I first saw him, I felt like I was in a zoo, like seeing an animal. And I was just like, I've never seen one of these before.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I was so in awe. And I was like, it's happening. It's time.
Yeah.
This is, and then they start yelling at you, and you go from like, you think you're ready for everything to like immediately, like you're out of your comfort zone. You're like totally, you're, thousands of miles away from home.
Yeah.
Like,
They
and I,
do a really good job of making you feel like you're on another planet with no laws.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just like, I'm about to get fucked up. And we get on the bus, and they put our heads down and everything. And same old story, other guys have talked about the whole process. You get to boot camp, you go through the shit, you get yelled at every day. It's just rinse, repeat.
Mhm.
They just fuck with you for 3 months, and they make you a Marine.
Mhm.
Um, and then yeah, from there, I was a 2631, so I was ELINT guy working like radars and stuff.
Mhm.
And so I go to Corey Station, and Brandon, in Brandon's episode, he talks about how they were like super lax. It was the best time of his life. I got there when they had those restrictions and stuff, and like
Yep.
you had to leave base in uniform, and everything was like super tight,
Yeah.
and like you couldn't really do anything. But I still had a great time because that's when you feel like an actual Marine at that point a little bit. Like
Yeah. It's
you're still waiting to get to the fleet, but like you get through boot camp, you go to MCT, and then like you're in A school, and you're just like, whoa, I'm this is it. Like I'm actually doing my job now.
yeah. I'm not just rucking, and because MCT is just boot camp 2.0 to a degree, and then when you get to your A school, you're like, oh, this is pertinent stuff, and I'm kind of, even with the more strict like the more strict regulations and everything, it still was more, it's still obviously more big boy rules than boot camp and MCT. So you're like, oh wow, I'm getting there. It's gonna happen someday. The fleet isn't this mythical place that I'll never reach.
Yeah, and it felt like that for a long time.
Yeah.
Especially for intel guys like in linguists. I mean, you go to Monterey for like ever, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
to go to Texas, and like for us guys, it was, I think the entire training pipeline was from boot camp to finish was about a year for me.
Yeah. Yeah, when
Um,
I shipped to boot camp in September of 2012, and I hit the fleet in late October of 2014.
yeah, that's because I remember I got December of 2013. That's when I got to the fleet, and I
Yeah.
I had shipped in January 2013.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy. That's actually a running joke at DLI is the fleet is it's like Atlantis. Like you hope it's really real, but nobody that's ever claimed to like everybody that goes looking never comes back. So you just kind of you hear about it and you hope it's a real thing, but you'll never know. You'll never find out. It was crazy.
in Texas, yeah. And I remember like when I got to Texas, I was like, okay, we're almost done with this. And Texas was a great time for me. I remember
Oh
like
god.
me and my boys from boot camp, Gage Williams and James Pennington, we did a lot of shit together.
Mhm.
I mean, like stuff that I've never done in my life that was kind of crazy, but like we went rattlesnake hunting and we drove around in a pickup and just like shot squirrels, like really Texas things. And I was like,
That's
oh,
yeah,
that's
that's like
cool. I bought a cowboy
violently
hat. I
Texas.
felt pretty Texas.
Cam
I
always
mean,
made
if,
that
and if
joke when like he arrived in Texas and he saw all the people wearing cowboy hats in the airport and he's like, I don't belong here. He's like, get me out, dude. I'm glad you had such a good time in Texas because I fucking that was the one of the lowest points in my military career. Texas was
oh
fucking
shit.
awful, bro. Because we couldn't do any shit like that. When we were in Texas, it was you had to be in chucks to go to the chow hall, and you had to be in camis in your room. Like
Oh
it was
wow.
like super max lockdown, and yeah, it was. We had formations at night, like every couple hours. Like it was rough, and I was literally drunk the whole time, the whole time,
Yeah.
the whole time.
Well, I feel like the group that I went through kind of ruined it for people because there were a lot of people getting in trouble. One kid like went AWOL and just decided to up and leave. He drove back to his hometown in Florida and just never came back.
Yeah, you can't do
And
that.
yeah, that's a no-no. Um,
It's frowned upon.
yeah. I want to give a shout out actually to John's Rude because I remember the first time I saw him was in Texas and it was you couldn't miss him, like 8 feet tall with those glasses. I was just
Exactly.
like, dude, yeah.
Nice.
It's really cold down here. I'm sorry if I.
No, you're
Uh,
good.
but
It's
yeah,
pretty
so I
cold in
got.
my garage, and I'm in California, and you're back in Iowa right now?
Oh no, actually, we just finished the today. I just got back
Oh,
from
okay.
Iowa with the last load of stuff, so I'm in Milwaukee now.
Nice, dude. Right on.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm like I can walk to Miller Park and see the Brewers play
That's
when
legit.
quarantine's over.
Yeah, someday. I actually was able to work this morning, and it was a complete waste of time. Shout out to Wild Barrel Brewing Company. I hope you stay. I hope we continue to stay open because we're available for to go beer right now.
That sounds like a great time though.
I
A
mean,
to go beer.
it is because a lot of our stuff isn't available in stores and stuff. So we're not that big. We're not in like we're in a couple Bevmos and liquor stores, but for the most part, you have to come to the brewery to get our beer. And so right now we're just doing a bunch of deals on cans and crowlers so that you can come in and take beer home because we got a temporary designation as a convenience store or a liquor store so that we can
Oh,
stay open under the
nice.
quarantine because fuck the system. People want beer.
Yo,
So,
maybe they'll sponsor this.
well,
Sponsor it
they're
by.
kind of. I mean, I don't want to take any of their money right now, dude. I'm hoping that place stays afloat.
That's yeah. It's a bad time, but
Yeah.
um. Anyway, yeah. So Texas, just more school, and honestly, like I went from like doing ELINT things to you know the like collection side of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then so like to like a brief summary of my entire Marine Corps career was me jumping from job to job to job.
Right.
Like I was
Yeah.
I was never just one thing the entire time, which kind of sucked, but it also was pretty cool because I got to do a lot of different shit over my enlistment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so me and the boys rolled out from Texas in took a friend of ours truck. He drove us up to his place, and I think he lives somewhere in Orange County. We stayed with his parents for a few days, and we got to radio battalion uh like late one night. Or no, my bad. We drove to Texas from Florida. Anyway, I drive. So we get to check in and stuff at Camp Pendleton,
Hmm.
and it's like late, and kind of the same thing with the guy that picked us up. He's like, "Yep, the people hate it here. It sucks." And I was like, "There's no way this sucks, dude. You're a Marine." Like I was still getting high and tights at this point, so I was like still
Oh,
super motivated. And
so for my non-military folks, high and tight is the stereotypical Marine haircut where you're basically bald except for that like crown of hair on the very top of your head. Basically, if you've ever been pulled over by a cop with this haircut, you're fucked. You're getting a ticket.
yeah, you're or arrested. You're getting thrown on the ground. It's gonna be a bad day.
Yeah, it's rough. And generally, the longer you're in the Marine Corps, the less you give a shit about. That's what you get at the end of boot camp. So the longer you're in, the less you care about still looking like that, and you grow your hair out. So the fact that Coop was still getting high and tights, a year into his enlistment upon reaching the fleet was he was still really balls deep in the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and I remember like a month after being at battalion, I got my first medium fade, and then like 2 weeks after that, that's when the low reg got busted out, and I rocked that for the rest of the enlistment.
Hell yeah, brother.
As people that served with me know, that I really pushed those limits.
Yeah. To quote the
Um,
great Tracy Wine, the great and powerful Tracy Wine, what's that hair? God, dude, battalion was such a mess. But
yeah,
so you get to the fleet, you immediately start becoming demotivated. And what shop did you go to first?
I initially checked into Bravo Company, and I was thrown right onto a team,
Mm-hmm.
SST there,
Okay.
and I they that's when they were getting ready to stand up and send out a group for to Afghanistan. So
Okay.
I was kind of pumped. I was like, okay, let's do this. Like I actually might get to deploy like right away to
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Uh, they I forgot who they took. I think that was Scott's. I think that was Scott's deployment.
Yeah. Scott went on that pump. So did Tracy
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, I remember because Tracy was he was there like as soon as I checked in, and I was like, all those guys, Bo San Steven and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
they, yeah. And I looked up to those guys because I was like, you've done it, you've been here, teach
Right.
me.
Yeah.
And I got into trouble pretty early into my Marine Corps career at battalion.
Mm-hmm.
It was I started, underage drinking is not like it's frowned upon, but like by especially by like the upper chain of command, but
Mm-hmm.
like your lower chain of command is kind of pretty cool about it. I just got out of control. Um, and I got NJP'd for it. Which I deserved it. I went a little crazy, and I got NJP'd, but I was really fortunate to have a master sergeant looking out for me. This guy, he kind of he took me and he's like, "Hey man, like you seem like you want to be here. You actually want to do the job, and you like the Marine Corps. I don't know what you're going through or whatever, but um, he threw me on the TAD to go to Maryland and get certified in CNE
Right.
as I had just
CNE
gone
being
through.
computer network exploitation. It's basically
Yeah,
um, the signals intelligence involves, which was all of our field, the kind of all encompassing thing, is the capture or collection of, communication and then the exploitation of it for, benefit in wartime. So CNE is, stuff like things that you would send on a computer. So it'd be Facebook messages, emails, things like that.
yeah, and I had just gone through the little course they had at battalion with Ron Hughes, who is a stellar Marine. If you ever knew him or worked with him, he's one of the smartest people I've ever known in my life. Like the dude
Mm-hmm.
just it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so he gets me through his course, and that's when that master sergeant's like, hey, I'm gonna give you a second chance. Like don't fuck this up. I believe in you. Go do good stuff.
Right.
And at that point, I was kind of thinking, I was like, I'm new, like I'm fresh, like get your shit under control, make this dude proud. And so I kind of realized that I had been, as soon as I got to battalion, drinking a lot and getting into trouble. And I was like, that's not me. That's not who I am. Like, I'm going to take this serious. And so we get there and, all is well. I'm learning, like, I don't know anything about computers. So I struggled to like get through the whole Linux thing and like learn actually how computers operate. And so that was tough, but something that really killed my motivation about the Marine Corps was when I was there, we go down to New Orleans to do some surveillance stuff. And while we're there, after class one day, the instructors take us upstairs in this building, and everyone's having beers and stuff. And this gunny comes over. He's like, "Here, have a beer." And I'm like, "No, I'm good, man. Like, I just got NJP'd. I lost rank. I'm not 21. I don't want to go down that road." And he's like, "No, just have." And he keeps going and like pushing.
Mm.
And they're like, "It's fine. It's just a beer." And so like, I drink it, and I'm like, "Cool." And something in my brain, because I was an immature dummy, was like, "Oh, I get a drink now. Cool."
Right.
No.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so I still like we get back to Maryland, and the army cats there are just straight alcoholics. Like they party all the time. So I'm always in the smoke pit drinking with them. And
Mm.
I'm towing that line. Like I'm probably gonna get in trouble again. And you know, fast forward like a month, we go down to Fort Lauderdale to do some more training exercises and stuff.
Mm.
And it was Cinco. I'll never forget. It was Cinco de Mayo, and a buddy of mine had bought me like a couple bottles of wine, and I was just planning to stay in my room and drink and be happy.
Right.
But then this gunny calls me up. He's like, "Hey, we're going out. You're coming with?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I don't want to be like, yeah, gunny, I can't go out. I'm fucking wasted." But he's like, "Nope, you're coming. You're coming." And so I end up going.
Mm.
And at that night, I get in some trouble, and he basically pulls me aside. He's like, "You're a piece of shit. Like you fucked up. You shouldn't be drinking." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, I get it." And he's like, "We're gonna handle this. Like I don't believe in fucking Marines over. We're gonna handle this. Like I'm gonna punish you because you need to be punished, but I'm not gonna like tell your chain of command so you don't get NJP'd and everything." And I was like, "Okay,
Well,
cool."
thanks, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, so like for the rest of my time in this course, he has me like field daying the classroom every day, and I have to stand up in front of the class and give like these speeches on honor, courage, and commitment, and just like it was embarrassing. But I was like, okay, at least I'm not
At least it's not
getting
paperwork.
fucked,
Yeah.
right? And then on the last day of class, this fucking guy like outs me in front of my staff sergeant. He's like, "Yeah, you fucking alcoholic." And then he like straight up just tells this dude that I was drinking and I got in trouble at this bar that we went to. And I was like, wow, okay. So like I did all that shit that he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this at my level," and then like just rats me out to my staff sergeant. And my staff sergeant has no choice but to tell. Like at this point, I was slated to go on the 15th MEU,
Okay.
and that's why they had sent me to the course originally, to back up a little bit. Um, so I was slated to go on the 15th MEU, and I was going to be the C&E operator. So, but when he tells my staff sergeant, he has no choice but to like tell the chain of command, because if they do find out, then he's fucked at that point. And it was my fault. And I don't want people to think that, yeah, this dude fucked me. Like it was my fault. I was being stupid and I got in trouble.
Mm.
But like I just wish he would have at least done that first and not made it seem like he's going to take care of the problem. And so at that point in my Marine Corps career, I was like, I thought we were supposed to have this brotherhood. We're supposed to have each other's backs and shit. But he kind of seemed like he was out for himself. And so
Mm.
I just had like a bad taste in my mouth about that. And I was just like, I fucking fuck this. And then I kind of, not like a shit bag, but I just kind of lost motivation to give a shit.
Yeah.
But so I get back, I get kicked off that deployment, and I was in a pretty bad place. Like I was just like, this sucks. Like I'm that guy now. I'm that guy that the battalion looks at and they're like, he's a fucking turd.
Mm-hmm.
But Ron took me under his wing. He really taught me the job and like looked out for me. And he was the dude that like made me believe again in the brotherhood and was like, I got your back. Like just keep it on the straight and narrow, just do what you're supposed to do, learn your job, and be a good Marine,
Mm-hmm.
and get through it. And I bounced back from that and really, really not like like super moto bought back into the Marine Corps, but I really gave a shit about the job and I was like super excited to be doing what I was doing.
Right. And that's the first. I think that's. I mean, I'm biased because I never really gave. I didn't really care too much about the the green side stuff, partially because of DLI, where it's basically just not fun college. Like it's all
Yeah.
about how good you are at the job. Like being a good runner and stuff was important, but excuse me. At the end of the day, if you could do 20 pull-ups but you couldn't pass your DLPT, it didn't matter. Like you were getting a new job and they were going to kick you to the curb. They didn't care.
Right. Yeah.
The
And
DLPT is the
that's
final test for the language schools.
and
And
like oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, dude.
I was going to say like as far as regulations went on like uniform and hair and stuff, I didn't care. I really like I just gave a shit about my job.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like I can make a difference here. Like we just stood up the S3E, which was like we were finally had the capability to bring C&E into the battalion, and I was like part of that first group, and I was like, this is cool. Like I'm doing stuff that Marines haven't done before
Right.
here in like radio battalions, and I was like, this is cool, and I started believing it all again.
Yeah.
And I spent what was it from 2014 till I spent a little over a year as cadre in C&E, and that's when the 13th MEU nabbed me to be the C&E, one of the C&E operators, because it
Okay.
was Cam and I,
Right.
and I
Okay.
was pumped. I was super pumped because, like, in radio battalion, they're like, yeah, you're going to be lucky to get any sort of deployment.
Right.
And they're like, yo, you're going on the 13th MEU. And I was like, hell yeah, man, let's do this. I'm
Right.
going to do C&E.
And then we didn't.
And then we did not.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there for a lot of the workup.
Yeah,
Um,
you came in even later than the RRT, if I recall correctly.
yeah, I was there. I got there when the RT had their final like roster. So like when Brandon was talking about they had lost a member and then they had to like they got a new member and stuff. Like I was there after that whole thing happened.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Um, yeah, so it was right before we went down to before we moved barracks,
Oh, out to Delmar.
Delmar. Yeah.
Right. 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 Okay.
Um, yeah, and then I was actually kind of excited to be on a Navy ship. Like I thought it would be cool to go out to sea. And then we went out on our first ship X, and I was like, this is kind of not fun,
Yeah.
living like animals.
Yeah.
But
It
yeah,
I kind of do miss the ship sometimes. Like I miss. I think it all comes back to I think missing the boys. Like when else are you going to get an opportunity other than the coronavirus quarantine to be locked in a small space with all of your best friends with nothing to do but video games and work out?
oh, absolutely.
Like,
Like I don't miss brushing my teeth 2 feet away from someone taking a dump, but I
yeah.
miss being able to wake up and like just reach down and slap somebody and be like, yo, you want to like watch a movie? You just want to chill, you know?
hmm
Which I didn't. So what? I was supposed to be a senior operator, and then I remember they made me go to analyst school, and they were going to make me an analyst, and if you
Right.
remember, I was not happy about that
I
at
do
all.
remember that. I do.
I was diehard senior, like diehard, but they told me, they're like, we need analysts, and they promised me, like, if your team goes and does anything, we'll pull you. You can go with your team. Um, so they're like, just stay spun up on C&E stuff, stay current, and then you're gonna be doing analyst work. And I go to the analyst course, and I'm telling you, like right now, like when I say like jumping jobs, like I was ELINT, then I was C&E, and now I'm trying to be an analyst.
And you're
And
also
like,
attached to a team, and yeah.
yeah, and like I go to the analyst course, and I'm just like, dude, I don't get this. And like I start to get into it, and like I just accept that that's my fate at this point. Like I'm just going to be an analyst on the ship. So we kick off the deployment, and I'm working. They put me on graveyards, so 12 on, 12 off, over on night shift, and that fucked me up because they never took me off night shift. I spent the entire deployment working night shift,
And were
which
you
was
in
like,
Bahrain or were you on the ship?
I was on the ship for the first month. Then we went to Bahrain for a few months, and then we came back to the ship.
Right. Okay.
And the whole time, like Bahrain was cool. I mean, everyone was like jealous because we were getting
Per
we were
diem.
getting that money, that per
Yeah.
diem. But like I'm telling you, like I barely the entire deployment, I barely saw sunlight, and that alone fucked with me. But when when you guys talk about like being alone for the first time after deployment and it feeling weird, like my entire deployment, I felt isolated. I felt like, because I worked alone. I like when I was in Bahrain, I was in the office and no one else was there.
Mm.
Like I was the sole dude in that office. And so I spent a lot of the deployment just doing my own thing, like by myself. And that, like, it ended up taking a toll because I felt like everyone else was doing their shit together,
Yeah.
and I was kind of separated from the group.
Yeah.
And that sucked. And it's kind of hard to talk about, but I got into a really, really, really dark place, especially after I'd gotten to Bahrain.
Mm.
Um, I was in a job that I was like, I don't want to fucking be doing this. Um, we butted heads, me and the commandant butted. I remember standing in the P-way of the ship before we even went to Bahrain, and Scott was just yelling at Master Sergeant, just laying into him about how this is so fucked up that he's gonna pull one of his team members and all this shit. And you know, it was just constant fighting about the whole situation. And finally, I was like, you know what, I'll do it. I'm just not gonna be happy about it. And
I'll
then
do it, but I'm gonna complain the whole time.
that motherfucker um, hit me on my pros and cons for not being enthusiastic about the job.
Uh.
I was like,
So
what the fuck?
so again, for the non-Marine Corps people, pros and cons are a numerical rating given to Marines every quarter. Quarter, I
I
think.
think so.
Yeah, they're like a quarterly rating about all of the non-physical or shooting things like that. It's basically a performance review, and then those numbers directly correlate to the points that you get to earn promotions. So for somebody to ding you about something like that directly affects your chances of picking up a new rank, which is
And I
pretty
was already,
fucked up.
I was a 31, so like we already picked up super slow,
Yeah, exactly.
and I was NJP'd and lost rank. But that was all fine and well. You suck the dick, you fucking keep going.
Yeah.
And we got to Bahrain, and I, like, after working graveyard shifts, and like, you're there, I was there with two other people, but like I barely saw them. So it was, I would go to work at like 5 or 6 at night, and it would be just like a quick switch over. Like I'd be showing up, they'd be heading out. So, excuse me. Um, I got into a really bad headspace there, and I just wanted to die. I was just like, I would rather fucking kill myself than keep doing this. Like, it sucked. It fucking sucked.
Yeah, the analyst job itself is very very isolating in this because you're staring at a computer with headphones on for 12 hours, and if you're working graveyards, it's in the middle of the night. You're sleeping when everyone else is up, and to do that when you're removed from all of your friends and it's forced upon you, that can't be good.
Yeah, and so I started to have those thoughts and shit, and then it got to a point I actually got scared. Like it scared me that I was actually gonna, do it. I was like, I'm gonna be that guy on deployment, and that I think was the lowest I'd ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just got worse when I got back to ship, which left me with like this feeling of guilt because when I got back to ship, everyone was like very supportive of me. They were kind of like, this is fucked up that you're working graveyards this whole time. And they're not. We never switched. And I remember Brandon used to come over to my rack and just like check on me. He'd be like, "How you doing, man?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he's like, he'd just chat with me. And Cam, like everyone was there, and that was like a big saving grace for me. Um, it got to the point where when I was thinking about stuff like that, I stopped giving a shit about my family. Like if I left, like I wouldn't care. Like it would suck for them, but I started feeling guilty. Like these guys are here for me. Like they're my family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and something I never told anybody this, but like in my breast pocket, I had a suicide note I'd carry around with me every day.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. Um, like I'd never talked to that, even like I've never even told Morgan that. Morgan's my wife. But that shit was heavy, and I
Yeah.
felt I felt like when you guys talk about like feeling guilty about being fucked up, like I felt guilty, like I didn't do anything really to warrant it. Like why didn't I just suck it up? It was just graveyard shifts, whatever. You were just switch jobs, but there was just something that I was fucking off, and I fucking hated doing what I was doing, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but then we got back um, from deployment and shit, and that stuck with me for a long time, especially
Yeah.
after the deployment.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember it was not good for you for a while after we got back.
Yeah, and I remember because all I wanted to do was C&E on the deployment, and
Mm-hmm.
so when we got back, I was like, finally, like I'm done being. And they told me you're not going to get to be an analyst. I was like, cool, awesome. So I was like, I'm going back to C&E. That was my silver lining, was at least I'll go back to battalion, I'll do C&E. And then they put me in Alpha Company and back to doing team stuff,
Yeah.
which was better than being an analyst. But I was like, dude, I just want to, you know. And so I took matters into my own hand at that point. I duped the Marine Corps. I don't know if you've heard that story, but eventually I just started showing up at C&E, and then I went up to the company office. I was like, have you gotten my BSO paperwork, which is, the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they switch you um, different um, companies in the battalion. And the dude that was working in the company office was like, I didn't know you were supposed to have BSO paperwork to C&E. And I was like, yeah, dude, it was supposed to be filled out. They fucking filled out BSO paperwork and put me in C&E just because I was just like, yeah, I was supposed to be there. I
I
was
mean,
just tired of it. I was just like, dude, I'm fucking going.
if you say pretty much anything confidently, someone will buy it. That
Oh
dude,
my
that's
God.
hilarious.
That's the one thing I learned about the Marine Corps is like that the higher ups act like they know more than you. They don't know dick. They don't know shit, dude. They
Yeah.
know as much as you do. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can lie to them and they'll believe it.
Yeah, especially if you're carrying a clipboard.
Right? Just act like you're supposed to be there and they'll trust you. Yeah. So I went back to C&E, and then I was excited to get back into that and doing that. And that's when the gunny at the time that was in charge of them was like, you're no longer doing C&E. You're going to be the assistant EW chief. And I was like, that's cool.
EW
Like,
is electronic warfare.
yeah. So
So it's like
we,
jamming and shit like that.
I was pretty honestly at that point. I was like, cool, something new, whatever. Let's just do it. I was close to getting out. It was under a year, so I was just like, whatever, just
Mm-hmm.
riding my time.
Yeah.
Um, and it was pretty fun. I loved it. Like just making PowerPoints and learning different shit. It's kind of it was cool. It was a cool way to end my career. And looking back, like I was super happy that I had the opportunity to do so many different things. Um, I think that was a blessing that I got to basically taste a bunch of different Kool-Aids.
That's an interesting way to look at it because that's a very mature way to look at it too because most people, especially when you dedicated so much time and resources to learning a specific craft, because I mean the 31 school is not easy. It's an MOS that is damn near impossible to pick up in. And then, each one of these jobs that you had to do is not something you can just take a crash course in and carry on. Like, it took a significant amount of effort to become proficient in each one. So, most people prefer to specialize because that way it's not like that effort was for naught. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it took me a long time to get that to that
Yeah.
point where I was like, it is pretty cool. Like thinking back, like yeah, I got to do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. You got to do it all,
But
essentially, other than the recon shit.
but yeah, that was and every Marine wants to go kick doors and jump out of planes, but
Yeah.
you gotta look at the bright side on what you were handed, and it took me a long time after getting out to finally be like, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and I think a lot of it was just when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I went straight into school. Well, okay, let me back up.
All right.
Before I got out of the Marine Corps, I had met my wife Morgan.
Mm,
Started dating, and she got pregnant. And I had already proposed to her. We were planning on getting married anyway. And when she got pregnant, I was like, "There's no point in waiting. Let's just get married now." Honestly, it was for the BAH. I was like, "We're about to have a kid. I
you
want to be able to support that
need
support that baby."
need those shekels. Yeah.
What I didn't realize was I did have problems, and going into a marriage that early and having a kid mixed with the problems that I was going to discover I had was not a good combination.
Mm,
It was pretty bad time. Like, um, a lot of people say they were denying that they had problems. I was one of them. I was just like, it's fine, I'm out. Like, you get that ED 214 and you feel on top of the world
yeah.
until you actually have to start. Your terminal leaves up, and you're like, now what?
Right.
But
Definitely.
my tentative plan was to go to school. Like, I was gonna go to school, and at that point, be a marine biologist. I was like, I love sharks. I'm gonna go be a marine biologist. That was literally like just off the top of my head. I was like, I like sharks. I like diving. Marine biology, cool. I'm in
Let's do it.
California.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Exactly.
Um, got done with my first semester. About halfway through the semester, I was like, I hate school. I absolutely hate going to school.
Yep.
I can't do this. But I finished out the semester, and um, by that point, my daughter was born that February. I got out, went on terminal in December of 2017, and was officially out on January 13th of 2018. And then February 11th, my daughter was born. So my wife just lost TRICARE. So we were like trying to figure out how to switch insurances like within less than a month so she could deliver our child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was super unhappy with going to school, but I had no idea what I was going to do. I ended up working for this dude cleaning ship hulls in the port of San Diego.
I remember that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I would go down and I would just scrape scuzz off the bottom of ships, which was an interesting job. But I fucking hated my boss, so I ended up quitting that.
I remember
I,
that more than anything. I don't
I
think
fucking
whenever you told me about that job, it was never, hey, dude, how's work going? It was never, The job is really cool. It was always fuck this guy that I'm working for.
He was fucking terrible. He was a hothead. Like everything was like he wanted to butt heads with. If you said green, he would be like, "It's fucking blue," you know. And I'm like, "That's okay. You're always right, dude. Because I'm not going to sit here and argue with you for half an hour. I just want to get done with my day."
Right.
So I was finally done with that. I fucking left that shit. And at that point, we were hanging out with some of Morgan's family up in Nuevo, California,
Mm-hmm.
and which is Orange County, I think, up north, desert area. They had horses, and I would hang out with their horses all day, and I loved horse. I was just like, this is cool. I'm zen, you know.
Life's good, yeah.
And so then I ended up finding a job working as a ranch hand at these stables in Temecula, where I was taking care of these thoroughbred racehorses, like super expensive racehorses, and I'm just like, this is dope. I'm
Yeah.
chilling with horses all day. Like I remember this one, like I started bonding with these animals. I was like, dude, horses are way better than people. And I was like super into that job. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I couldn't make dick for money and I was driving an hour each way and I was spending more in gas than I think my checks were even coming out to be. So I was just like,
Right.
okay, now what am I gonna do? So I left that and I started working at U-Haul. Like I bounced around a lot. I had no idea. And that was like the biggest struggle of getting out. Was
Yeah,
like,
that because that's kind of an exacerbation of the big problem about getting out, which is you get accustomed to this structure and this regimentation and this routine, and then all of that is ripped out from under you. And so
yeah,
you're already kind of like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do from, 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day, which are like my waking hours specifically. But, how am I supposed to fill this time when for the last 5 years it's been from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day? I know exactly what I'm going to be doing and who's going to be there and blah, blah, blah. And then you get out and it's go figure it out. It's totally open world. And you kind of, if you don't know what you want to do, you kind of do end up bouncing around. Like the only reason I didn't leave um, the first job that I had when I got out was selling cars for um, this Marine vet that
I
my,
remember that.
oh God, dude, it was so he was a Marine after Desert Storm pre 9/11. So in the most peacetime to ever peacetime for the Marine Corps. And he was a supply clerk, like a supply and logistics clerk, and he was like super OCD, and he kept trying to pull these like, oh, Marine Corps this, Marine Corps that, like you need to do this, you need to do that, like why aren't you doing this? You're a Marine, blah blah blah. And I was like, I eventually kind of got to a point where I was like, dude, you were just like a Walmart stock clerk that wore green to work every day. Like, shut the fuck up. And so he was an asshole. And then, but the biggest thing was that one, he was uh, basically running an illegal business because he was paying, he was having dudes work 7 days a week, which is illegal in California. Like I was working 95-hour weeks for minimum wage.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was awful.
No overtime, I'm guessing.
Well, no, you make overtime on minimum wage, but
Oh,
but the thing is I was working that much and I was still making less than I was making as a corporal.
Jesus.
So it was not good. It wasn't a good work environment because coming from the really like team oriented atmosphere of the Marine Corps, going from that to car sales, which is about as cutthroat as any industry can get, was like it was a real culture shock for me, and I really didn't like it. Like the dudes I was working with, a couple of them were all right, but like most of them were kind of sleazeballs, and I was like, ugh, this is not for me. And then I ended up working at a restaurant, and if it didn't, if it wasn't so flexible, and it didn't pay as well as it did off and on, yeah, dude, I would have quit that shit.
Yeah, like I did the horse thing and then I ended up working at U-Haul. And then I wanted to be a firefighter.
Uh,
Like yeah, I was bouncing all over, and finally Morgan was like, "What do you want to do that makes you happy?" And
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea, because before I met her, my plan was, get through the Marine Corps, get out. I was playing in a band in California, and I was like, Fucking music, let's full send on that. Let's just do it. I'll buy an RV, travel around. It'll be dope, you
Right.
know." But then, the whole kid thing happened, and that really,
Yeah, just that minor kid thing, you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, like Rusty was saying, like he had that scare, and it was like you gotta figure it out. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And I never thought I was gonna be a dad, honestly. And with everything starting to build up, I could like feel this like pressure, and I could feel that I wasn't right, and Morgan could tell I wasn't right, and it was just a lot of shit. We had a lot of problems because I didn't know how to tell her, like, hey, I'm fucked up. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get how to live in this world now. And
Right.
that was like the biggest thing for me. And my dad always said, my dad was in the Navy, and he was like, when you get out, it's never going to be the same. Like, you're not going to go to work and feel like what you do matters as much as what you did while you were in, unless like, you're going to be a police officer. You'll find that, you know what I mean? Or like, Rusty and you were talking about finding community, and
Right.
that's like the biggest thing, because until you do that, you really do, you feel like nothing you do matters as much, and
Mm-hmm.
that really can spiral you out of control. And I spent a lot of days just going like, I'm worthless. My family, I'm not providing for them. I'm useless to them. I'm useless to myself because I don't even know what I want to do. I'm useless to everyone around me
Mm-hmm.
until I figure it out. I mean, it wasn't until um, Morgan was like, why don't we move back to Iowa to, we can be around your family. And she ended up taking a job at a hospital. And at this point, I wanted to be a firefighter, and I was going to do wildland firefighting. I was like, I don't want to leave California, but it was good. Because California is really expensive, and I couldn't support us to live in our own place. Like, we were living with her parents, and
Right.
what that just made me feel like a bigger piece of shit. I
It's
was like,
tough.
I'm just mooching off my in-laws. Um,
It's tough, man. I mean, I have a pretty. I'm getting that GI Bill skrill, and I have a job, and I live with my girlfriend's parents, and it is kind of a blow to the ego. Like
yeah,
when
and
you are self sufficient for a while, and like they're great. They take really good care of us, and they make it's a very constructive uh like environment to live in. But I still am like, fuck, man. Like I'm 25, and I live with my girlfriend's parents. Like that's not. It does suck. I know what you mean.
yeah, and especially because I had no direction. Like, I wasn't
Right.
focusing on one thing. Like, I was working and just barely making money, and I felt like every day I woke up and like, or I'd be around them in the kitchen or something, I just felt like I need like, I'm not doing anything to change the situation.
Mm.
And when we finally moved, I actually was going to start going to school to be a police officer, but at the last minute, I switched my mind. I changed my mind, and I switched my major to what they have a digital mass media program out here, or back in Iowa is what I'm currently in. Um, was in, sorry. And that's like audio, which is originally what I wanted to get into, because I was like, if I'm not going to be in a band and tour and live that like weird, shitty lifestyle. So, I want to, record music. So I got into that program, and they made you do video and photography as well as the audio portion.
Oh,
And I got into the photography class, and it just clicked, and it was like a light bulb in my head. I was like, this is what you want to do with your life. This is it. Like, you're going to be a photographer. And I found out I was really good at it. And that's when everything shifted for me,
nice,
from
dude.
feeling like a piece of shit, like not knowing what I'm going to do, a burden to everybody, to, you know, I'm productive, I'm working towards something. Um, like 2 months into the semester, I had won this contest and had a photograph exhibited in Slovenia at this. It was like the forgot the name of the gallery, but I like I'm an exhibited photographer. And I'm like, what the fuck, you know? So I was
That's
like,
fucking
this is
radical.
awesome, dude. I was like cloud nine, and I was like, I'm chasing this, like I'm going after it, and I really felt support like from Morgan, and it was like the first time that I felt like she believed in me. And I don't blame her for not believing in me before, because I didn't believe in myself, and it's hard to like back someone up when they don't, believe in themselves, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I finally like it clicked with me, and I was like, this is awesome. And I just started running with it. And then I'm sorry, there's a washer going crazy.
It's okay.
Um and so I switched my major again to just strictly photography. And that's when I realized where we were at in Iowa wasn't a good spot. There wasn't anything to do. Morgan wasn't happy with her current job at the hospital. She's a surge tech,
Right.
which hands tools to surgeons and assists in the surgeries and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't happy where she was working. She was being overworked. There was nothing to do around small town Iowa. We didn't fit in because, as you can see, like we dye our hair and we pierce our faces, and that's not conservative Iowa life. So we just didn't mesh. So we ended up moving to Milwaukee because she's got some family out here, and there's the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. And I was like, yo, they have a photography program. I kind of like art too. I'm okay at drawing. And so she's like, just give it a shot. And so I applied, and I got accepted to go this fall. And I was just like, and everything, like once I found that thing, that community, like that thing that I really love, it just felt like life started falling into place.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was really cool to see, but it took me, it takes time. And it's really weird because now it's like the way the way I like to look at it is like once you can like identify as something other than a prior service Marine, that's when you've kind of like made it as a veteran transitioning out.
Dude, yes, that is such a critical thing that like needs to be emphasized because being a veteran is an important part of your identity, shouldn't be all of it at all.
Right. And I felt like when I would talk to people and like they'd ask me like what I do, the most important thing I would tell them is, well, I used to be in the Marine Corps. And then after that, everything else was a letdown. Like, and then the conversation would gravitate towards the Marine Corps because nothing else in my life I was really excited about to talk about.
Yeah.
And I just kind of got stuck in that. And I was just like, that's when, like, when I got exhibited, I was like, I can finally identify, like, I'm a photographer. That's me. I'm a photographer that used to serve in the Marine Corps, but I'm a photographer.
Right.
That's who I am. That's who I'm becoming. And that was a huge shift in my mentality, in my mental health too.
Yeah, I can imagine. So when kind of backpedaling pretty significantly, we get back from deployment and you're in this like really shitty spot. Did it
Yeah.
take all the way to kind of having that aha light bulb moment where you're like, this is it? Photography is the passion. That's the direction. Now I have something to point all of this energy at and all of this, I have something to work off of. I have a foundation that I can work off of. That's the pivotal moment. Was it
Yeah. That was
still pretty much, I mean, not as low as you were, but like did it take all the way until then to kind of get back mentally, or was it more, were there kind of ebbs and flows where like some things helped, but then there were other low points, and then the pivotal moment was when you knew everything was going to get better from there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like there were definitely ups. Um, the birth of my daughter was a big up, but
Oh
it
yeah, yeah.
that also turned into a really big down. So there would be I feel like there were like some gradual, like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good, like life's going okay, but then it would sink,
Yeah.
and it would stay that way for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I would never feel like really happy. I'd feel okay, I just never
Yeah.
felt really happy. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie, like, I, when I became a dad, like, I didn't really feel anything. Like, that's how bad like, my mental health, I didn't feel really anything. Um, like, the actual birth of it, you know, I blubbered like a fucking baby. It was beautiful to see
Well,
my
yeah.
daughter for the first time. But then, you know,
And
I was
she's,
just
for the
like,
record, one of the most beautiful children ever born.
oh God,
Just
it's
putting
gonna
it
be
out there.
so bad when she grows up. It's gonna be
She's so fucking cute, dude. And
yeah.
I am
Thank
like
you.
yeah, absolutely. And I am like notably on record not liking kids. And I fucking adore your daughter. But
Like I still don't even like kids except her. Like,
yeah.
but no, like even honestly, like I used to just get really depressed about being a dad. Even it was weird. It was a weird thing because that made me feel guilty. Like,
Yeah.
do you even love your kid? Like, you can't even be happy for her. And I was just like, God. And but that aha moment, that pivotal point in my life where I was like, I'm something other than just a guy that used to be a fucking Marine. Like my biggest fear in life, there were two things that I wanted. I wanted to get out of the Marine Corps on my own. I wanted that to be my decision. I didn't want to have to be like, I can't reenlist at all, or you know, I get booted out. Like I wanted to be the guy that was like, I could reenlist if I wanted to, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find, you know, identify as something other than, you know, the dude
Former
that used to
Marine.
serve in the Marine Corps. 'Cause I don't want to be that guy that, you know, is sad at the bar that only tells old war stories about what he used to do. I was like, that's just depressing,
Yeah.
you know. And so
Well,
once I hit that thing, and I was like, you know, I'm something other than just a guy that used to be a Marine. I checked off both boxes, and I really just felt really good.
that's awesome, dude. Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of dudes and girls never really achieve because it's like you said that nothing really feels, or for a lot of people, nothing feels as fulfilling as what you did when you were in. And
Yeah.
so until you find something that kind of does light you on fire, like for you, it's photography. I've got my fingers crossed for this police officer thing. I'm
Oh, you're gonna
enjoying
be
it so
great,
far.
man.
I hope so. But
You're gonna be
I'm
great.
enjoying the school stuff so far, but
Yeah.
until you find something, and I mean, obviously this podcast has been hugely impactful for me because it allows me to talk to people about um, what they're feeling and kind of commiserate and everything like that. So this has been very beneficial and therapeutic for me. And like I've said before, I'm not a creative person. I just talk too much. I've always been, I've always talked a lot. So like this was not that far of a leap for me. But until you find your photography, my podcasting, you know, you won't you're going to default to those highlight moments of your life where you felt fulfilled, you felt like you were doing something, you felt like you had purpose and you were having an impact on the world around you. And for a lot of people, the military is the peak of that, and they're always just kind of chasing that dragon until eventually they're that sad dude at the bar telling old war stories.
Yeah. And honestly, like this podcast is huge because, you know, talking about that time on deployment, I was honestly ashamed. Like I didn't want anybody to know. Like that's kind of what I was going through. Like there's some really dark shit that happened, and I felt ashamed to talk about it. I didn't want anybody to know that you know, but by you having this podcast, I started to realize I'm not the only one. Hearing Micah's story, I was just like, holy shit, you know, I had no idea, you know.
Yeah.
And I just to know that there's other people out there that feel and go through things that are very similar to what you went through is reassurance that you're not a you may feel broken, but you're not a broken person. You know,
Yeah.
you have you have some problems, but it's normal. And if you focus on things that are important to you in life, and you really work to get past it, it's possible to be like really happy again,
Yeah.
especially if you're in a really bad place.
Yeah. It's okay to not be okay. And that's the entire purpose is, to to show people who do feel like they're the only ones feeling what they're feeling. Um I wanted to show people through others that one, they're not alone in what they're feeling, just like you said, and two, it's okay to talk about it and not feel ashamed. And a
Yeah.
lot of times and for a lot of people, it takes a long fucking time, you know? Like
Hmm.
there are like when I got Dear John when like a month, like 5 or 6 weeks into deployment out of like a 3.5 year relationship.
Yeah,
And
that was really fucked up.
well, but and it was
But like,
ill timed, but after a lot of introspection and looking back on it, dude, I was not the best boyfriend. Like I, was we were out in Thailand getting fucking like piss drunk, and the straw that broke the camel's back for the relationship, I think, was we were out in Thailand, and I'm messaging her on Wi-Fi. I black out drunk, and then the next thing I know, I'm coming back to Wi-Fi the next day, like hungover like shit, and she's in conniptions trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. She thought I was dead because, I'm fucking plastered in a foreign country, and
right.
which in retrospect, I was really upset about at the time and stuff. But in retrospect, that's not a completely illogical thing to have happen. But at the end of the day, we had a 3.5 year relationship that was entirely long distance. It wasn't completely healthy. We both had a lot of toxic traits, and like it was devastating to me at the time because that was my one anchor to normalcy. Like that relationship was like the one, like the rock of Gibraltar that like, or the, this like one pillar of certainty when everything else, everything about the deployment was fucking miserable and changed 5 times a day. That was the one thing that
Yeah.
made sense. And then when
And
that
like,
was gone, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, and like when I said that was fucked up, I just remember when it happened to you. Um, just watching that shift in your personality, and just, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you were on the New Orleans when it happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember finding out about it, and like everyone was like, "Oh, fuck her," But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's mature of you to be able to look back and be like, it wasn't unreasonable that it happened, but like I just know that it was very bad timing, and it
Yeah.
definitely had some negative effects on you.
Oh, big time. Absolutely.
Oh,
And, but it kind of just got to a point where that, having that taken away, like nothing else, it just, the sadness and the everything, it just permeated every other part of my life. Like every part of the life that we were leading, which was objectively not, very happy go lucky, was just made that much more shitty. And I mean, I don't think I was ever I mean, I was never suicidal on the deployment, but I was pretty close because you just there's just nothing. Like I felt like I had nothing. You know, I had my boys, but they were all just as fucking miserable as me,
at
you
the
know?
risk of sounding cliche, it's like you just fucking go numb, and at
Yeah.
that point, the bullshit doesn't even matter anymore because you just take it.
Yeah. And
It's
the other
like
thing
it's
is
like
that it was so constant, you didn't expect anything else. Like
right.
you kind of we kind of stopped, or at least I stopped expecting things to go. I almost stopped hoping even for things to go the way I wanted them to go because like we had been let down so completely at every single turn that it was like, why am I even bothering hoping for this to go the way I want it to go, and then inevitably being burned, and then like having to deal with the emotional aftermath. And
Yeah, I
so,
remember when there was like word that we might Cam and I were going to do a C&E operation when I was in Bahrain. Like the
uh-huh.
word came down that we were going to do a C&E operation with the SEALs as a security team. And I was like, bro, that's some high speed shit. Like we're gonna go in with this fucking SEAL team as security. We're gonna do our C&E fucking nerd shit and like high speed, low drag. This is what I fucking trained for. Let's do it. And I remember like I was so used to getting let down at this point. I mean, through the workup, even the short time that I was on the workup, which is sad. I was just used to everything like shit hitting the fan every day.
Right.
We got that, and I was like finally excited about something. And when that got taken away, there was no more like not a single thing
Yeah.
that was like this is actually going to happen at all. It's like any good word we got, I was like they're gonna fucking say no. They're gonna take it away. You know what? How much farther can you actually push my shit in?
Yeah. Exactly, dude. And that, I think that was the hardest part, was just it was just so bleak. Like the hopelessness was so total that I think that was the hard part. Because like, yeah, getting Dear Johned was was rough, but it was that compounded on everything else. And I mean, I had been struggling with my mental health through since before I even joined. Excuse me. Jesus. Since before I even joined, I was having a hard time in high school, and then, when you're in the Marine Corps, you're just too busy. You basically just fill your time to not address your problems, and then
Absolutely.
when all of that went down, it just was kind of the last good thing was stripped away. But then again, like I said, it took years of, you know, self analysis and introspection and looking back on it, because hindsight is 2020 when enough time has elapsed. And I made the realization that, like, given all of the toxicity and the weird things that, you know that made up our relationship, and the fact that it had been long distance the entire time, there's a very, very real possibility that we would have, gotten married when I got back, or when we got back, moved in together for the first time. We'd never lived together. We'd never lived since high school even near each other. And then found out, like, oh, I hate this person, you know? Like,
Yeah,
it's totally possible. So, I
yeah.
kind of I think that a lot of the closure that came from that was realizing that I really only lost an idealized version of what that relationship was. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it
and
took me so fucking long to realize that. And the thing is that a lot of people, I think, this is a very, very long aside, but I'm segueing it back to my original point, that the sorry, that
you're good.
the I think a lot of people do the same thing mentally with their military careers, that nothing that they're doing after the fact holds a candle to what they were doing when they were in, but they're really comparing their potential prospects and their, the lives that they're leading to a hyper idealized, Instagram filtered, perfectly face tuned version of their Marine Corps career.
Oh yeah. I mean, because if you go back and look at the every day, every single day you spent in the like I people hear like, oh, I was intel, and they automatically think like this dude was doing like super secret shit every day. Like for every time I something cool happened, there was like months of bullshit
Oh
that
yeah,
like just months of fucking shit where I was just like, I hate fucking being here,
yeah.
you know?
I mean, I remember
Um,
I remember when we were on our way back from ITX, and So ITX is on. Is it in 29 Palms, which is a solid.
Fun fact about ITX.
Oh yeah.
I never ever went on one. Every time I skated out by having something else to do. And when you guys went on your ITX, Cam and I got to go out and
Cam was
run a
at our
scene.
ITX.
Didn't you guys go to another one after?
No, no, they did.
No,
They
that
did
was a
one in
different that was a
Yuma.
different fax.
Yeah, they did one in Yuma.
Okay.
I think that's
Yeah.
what you might be
You
thinking
guys
of.
went to 29 Palms for something.
We went
Um,
to. So we went to 29 Palm. We stood up for the deployment like late December. It was like a month
14?
after I got back to the or after I got to the fleet. Yeah, we stood up in like late December, and we went to
Okay.
ITX in like January, maybe early February.
Yeah, so I wasn't part of the detachment yet.
Right, exactly. But
But I never went to any ITX. I was there. I was actually in Yuma. You guys went to when you were in Yuma, except I was with C&E still.
that's right. Actually, the story that I'm thinking of is not even on the way back from ITX. It was on the way back from Naval Port San Diego. And one of our two, a couple at least, of our Humvees broke down,
Oh my
and
god.
and I remember Emma Spath and I tore apart an MRE box
Yeah.
and wrote, "Does anyone have a cigarette?"
Yeah, that was on our way down when
Was
we were
it?
taking Humvees down to the ship.
It was on the way down or on the way back? I don't remember.
It was on the way down.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I still have that picture.
I think so too. But
That was,
I was like, we are. Yeah, you're right because you're exactly right. And I remember because I was sitting there, literally holding a cardboard sign, asking for people to throw cigarettes from their cars going highway speed at a, a like a stalled out military convoy on the side of the road, on the side of the 805, like a bum. And
could
we
you
were weeks away from going overseas, like a
could you
matter of
yeah.
weeks
And these are the Humvees that they expected to last
to
us
do
if should
combat
shit hit
with.
the fan and like go out and
Right.
roll, like,
Exactly.
which is ridiculous.
There. Yeah.
But I mean, could you imagine today during like whole coronavirus thing if people saw an entire fucking convoy of Marines and the Humvees just pulled over on the five? The
They
media would have a
probably.
heyday.
Oh
It
God.
would it would
Yeah.
be hilarious.
Yeah. God. Yeah. I'm actually. I'm seeing a bunch of, or I'm hearing that they're spinning up a lot of Marine Corps Reserve and National Guard units, but until there's a fucking super motivated U.S. Army soldier walking down my street, I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah, but like that, I think that story actually is a it definitely shows how the mentality of a Marine works because you are expected to use this gear in a situation where your life could potentially be in danger, and you're supposed to rely on this gear that's broken and
Yep.
can break down at any point, and you're just like your command just like it is what it is, and
Yep.
you're just like, well,
Marines
it's
do the
it
most with
like,
the least, raw.
and you're just like whatever it is what it is, like
Yeah. I always
that's
remember
I
that's one of the funniest things is when people say like, "Oh yeah, this is made of military grade whatever." Like anybody who's actually been in the military hears military grade and runs the other fucking direction.
absolutely. By
Like
military grade, do you mean I'm gonna get this home and start it tomorrow, take a block and put it over the fucking? Is that what you mean by military grade?
I mean, basically, dude, when I hear military grade, I think, "Oh, this is made from the cheapest possible materials in the cheapest possible factory made by the lowest paid unskilled workers that they could find on American soil."
Absolutely. Like when like for anyone listening, if you hear military grade, you really don't know what it is. People have to bid to the government, and whoever bids the lowest gets the contract. So they're obviously gonna fucking give you shit product, and they don't
Yeah.
care.
No, they just
Especially
need
the
a
Marine Corps because they have the lowest funding.
yeah. Yeah, dude, I remember when I was in boot camp, I hate telling boot camp stories, but when I was in boot camp, I had a flak jacket that literally had a bullet hole in it from Vietnam. It was one of the soft armor tricolor button up ones. And I was like, "Mother of fuck, dude." Like it was absurd.
That's that's some gnarly shit. That's some gnarly.
Yeah.
Like, dude, have you ever checked the date on some of the MREs we eat?
No. Well, I mean, not the MREs themselves, but I had. I remember when we were at one of the field X's. It actually might have been ITX. I opened an MRE and it had a bag of Skittles in it, which is like finding fucking Willy Wonka's golden ticket. And the Skittles had expired before I was in high school.
Oh Jesus.
The
See, that's
Skittles expired in like 2006 or something like that. And I was like, nice. That's awesome.
yeah. Um, but to get back to that point we were making about like just talking about it and being okay with where you're at. I mean that's huge. That's definitely huge for people that are getting out because I remember um, talking about the deployment and stuff. When I got back, being in that place was uh, it was rough, right? And I knew my dad was in the military. He had deployed, Navy cat back in the 80s. Every 6 months they were out doing something. He was on subs. He's fucking crazy. I could
Yeah.
never do that shit.
No way, dude.
But I remember, thinking coming back from this and feeling kind of fucked up and hoping like I would get a pep talk about it, like, hey son, welcome home. I can kind of tell you're off. What's going on? And we never had a conversation. He never asked about it. We never talked about it. It was, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Just
Yeah.
let it go. You're done. Um, which I wish he would have. Which is why I commend you for doing this, man. This is huge. This
Thanks,
is
dude.
huge for the community because it 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 lets the vets know and everyone know that it's okay to talk about it because we need to normalize it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
especially with the whole 22 a day, 22 veterans a day. Like we need to normalize talking about our issues,
Yeah.
regardless of if you were in the initial invasion of Fallujah or if you were fucking in peacetime Marine Corps. Uh, if you have issues, find find people to talk to about it, and it's awesome that you're doing this here.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I wanted to, like I was telling Brandon, like I wanted to make this community to destigmatize it because, that whole you don't rate thing, I think really gets to a lot of people. I think, a lot of people that serve either in peacetime or, they don't serve in an active combat capacity, they don't feel like what they're feeling is valid. But the fact of the matter is, all it takes is, all it takes to completely throw your mental out of whack is working graveyards for 6 months or, being forcibly removed from a group of your friends, just like what happened to you. You weren't going through any kind of combat capacity or any kind of combat
Right.
operations, but what you were experiencing, if you put anybody in your shoes with any level of psychological hardiness, it, that shit gets you down, man. Like I worked in the skiff when I got back against my will. um, I wanted nothing more than to go to LAV platoon when we got back because at that point our LAV team was the only uh the only LAV team at battalion that had deployment experience at all. And so I was like, I begged Lieutenant, I won't say her name because we've shit talked her a lot, but I begged our lieutenant to send me to cadre there so that I could pass on, you know, this is the like prototype equipment that we worked with. This is what worked. This is what didn't. This is what we were doing. These are our SOPs. You guys can learn this. What you're learning in BSIC and whatever is fucking useless. And she was like, anyway, that's a cool story. I wasn't listening. You're going to the skiff. And and I ended up working graves for like 4 months. Like it wasn't even that long, you know?
I mean,
And
it definitely like it takes a toll on you, man. And like
absolutely, dude.
I'm
It
never gonna tell you I know how you feel because like our experience are different. I don't I can see where you're coming from. And I think it comes back to like, if you have happy employees, you have a company that runs better.
Yeah.
And as in the Marine Corps, it's the same way. Like if you have someone that's excited to do a job, you were getting ready to get out, and the fact that you were excited and wanted to do the LAV thing and be part of that and teach people what you knew and what you experienced, they should have let you do that because you were going to be more proficient at that than throwing you in the skiff and just walking away from you and being like, yeah, whatever, just rot.
Yeah. And
You'll
it
be
goes
out of here
back to
soon.
what we were talking about earlier, that like these jobs aren't things that you just learn overnight. Like I'd never done
Yeah.
analyst work. I hadn't. Like I'd done the stuff that we did in Texas, but that was it. Like I'd never written up an actual report in the way that they do in the skiff. It's different than the collection reports and stuff that we were doing. But I had never done that job. So I was so demotivated because I was like, look, dude, I have actual real life deployment experience in an LAV, and like we worked with that nutty prototype antenna and stuff like that, and we were the only people from battalion that got to touch that. Like we were the only people that knew how to use it. My team wrote the SOP for it essentially, and so we
And
were like,
that like makes you feel cool, like
yeah,
you're actually doing something productive.
right, exactly. And I was like, I have so much knowledge that I could pass on to these new guys coming in, because I had we got back in what, like late September, early October. So I had like a
September 11th, I'll never forget it. We landed in Del Mar,
yeah,
September
okay,
11th.
perfect. Yeah, September 11th. So
When we
yeah,
left on February 14th. I like
yeah,
those are two dates that are ingrained in my fucking head.
that's right. Yeah, it was Valentine's Day to 9/11. I do remember that. So
Fucking just
we got back, but like I wasn't getting out until August of the following year. So like I had a pretty good time or a pretty good amount of time where I could have passed on. I could have done probably 3 or 4 incoming classes of guys and taught them everything that we had learned, and it was completely wasted because instead I had to go to the skiff and learn how to be an analyst and do that until I could pick up my checkout sheet as early as humanly possible, de-issue my SIF gear as early as humanly possible, skate out of as many things as I possibly could. Like it was just I felt like I felt like a resource, like such a good resource that was just being squandered. And that was one of the most frustrating aspects. But um I the people that we served with, in one capacity or another, like I have dudes hitting me up um to get on the podcast and tell their story that like I like befriended them on the Boxer for like a month, and they were like, "Hey, dude, I see what you're doing. I really think it's a good idea. Like, it's, you know, I love it. Like, please, please have me on so I can talk and stuff like that." And
yeah, dude, it's fucking awesome.
well, I appreciate that, but it I feel like it speaks more to the breadth of people that feel like they have a story to tell and haven't felt comfortable telling it yet. And it's not just guys, it's not just straight leggers that went to Afghanistan or were at Al Assad Air Base in Syria and took IDF and stuff like that. Like it's not people that actually were in the shit. Like it was just people in the Marine Corps that had relatively run of the mill experiences like we did, and then you know they got out, had a tough ass time, and they're just doing their fucking best every day. And some of them have figured it out, some of them haven't. But people, once they are alerted to the fact that they don't need to suffer in silence, they don't want to. And I think that's a powerful thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it like overall, like I would say our enlistment, they weren't boring. We had a great time, and we got to deploy. But like like you said before, and to reiterate, you don't have to be that combat vet that's has like severe PTSD and a TBI from hitting an eye, like you could, it's just regular, normal, boring Marine Corps life. Boring. I'm going to put that in air quotes.
Yeah.
Um, considering what some Marines have been through, and you can still come out kind of fucked up and have your set of issues
Mm-hmm.
that you, and it keeps getting said, but it really needs to be driven home, that you, I'm sorry, uh, that your issues are important no matter what you went through,
Absolutely.
and you don't need to feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
guilt, like when we were texting back and forth, when you were talking about your podcast, like before you even did an interview, and we were talking about feeling guilty,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like, that word right there is like the biggest one. Is you should never feel guilty about how you feel about your service or what you went through,
Agreed.
ever.
Agreed. Is there anything else you wanted to say, man? Like, I mean, I feel like you covered it very thoroughly and eloquently. Like, do you have, we've kind of beat that horse to death and then some.
Yeah.
Were there any other, were there any other closing notes?
Just keep doing what you're doing, man. This is not going to be, this is huge. This is major for the community, and I really respect what you're doing, and I'm proud of you, man.
I appreciate it a lot, dude. So, real quick, kind of to your passion project, is there a place where people can find your photography?
Yeah. So Facebook, Polar Perspective Photography. I'm not really good at posting, but I'll try to update it more. And then if you go, I think it's Polar Perspective Photography at wixsite.com or something like that.
Okay.
I'll text you if you want to throw it up or whatever.
Yeah.
Shout out.
No, I will, because I'm gonna
Yeah,
put it
man.
on the social media. Do you have it on? Do you have an Instagram?
Yeah, I haven't posted to that, but I will update that. Polar Perspective for
Okay.
Instagram.
Yeah, just send me all the links so that I can throw it on the social media, so that because when people find something that they're passionate about, I want to get the community of listeners to, it's not a community if people are proud of something and it's just like, hey, this is what I'm doing, like it worked for me, and people are like, cool, yeah, crickets. Like, no, I want people to be able to go to your page and be like, holy shit, this dude wasn't kidding. He is a killer photographer. Like, if he found something like this almost by accident, maybe there's something that I've been trying to do or thinking about doing that, I should pursue, and maybe I'll be fucking insane at. So, yeah, send me those links and I'll throw that up on the social media, and we'll get that community going. But dude, I appreciate you coming on. It was great talking to you, and
Thanks for having me, man.
absolutely, dude. I'm glad we could do this. But give Amela a big kiss for me, and
Will do.
all right, and give Morgan a hug for me, okay?
Okay. Take it easy, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Cooper, and I hope it wasn't too heavy for you, but we wanted to just approach the mental health aspect and how it affected us both with as much honesty and candor as possible, because not a lot of people do that, and not a lot of people are comfortable with that. So we're trying really hard to destigmatize the dialogue about this kind of thing. So I hope you took something away from that. I really appreciate your guys' support. Do me a favor and follow the Instagram for the podcast at hutb.podcast, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll see you next time.
You know you're one thing better clear.